with activity-based, okay, activity-based system, okay. Activity-based system adds a process perspective to the financial perspective of the functional-based responsibility accounting system, while strategic-based responsibility accounting system translates the strategy of an organization into operational objectives and measures, takes the form of a balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard identifies objectives and measures for financial, customer, process, and learning and growth perspectives. Now, we have already started with what a balanced scorecard is in the book of Van der Beek. And actually, I have taken up, discussed the exercises with examples of the balance scorecard. So we have now the strategic based elements of responsibility accounting model. Now take note that we have now strategic based responsibility accounting system. So meaning responsibility accounting model is now this strategic based. Now, assigning responsibility, establishing performance measures or benchmarks, evaluating performance, and assigning rewards. So, again, the elements of responsibility accounting model. Now, in Exhibit 13-1, responsibility assignments compared with activity-based and strategic-based. In activity-based, no tie to strategy. Strategic-based is linked to strategy. In activity-based, system-wide efficiency, team accountability, financial perspective, and process perspective. While in strategic-based responsibility, linked to strategy, system-wide efficiency, similar with activity-based, team accountability, similar with financial perspective, similar process perspective, but you have to include customer perspective and learning and growth under strategic-based responsibility. Okay, now in activity, we have now the performance measures compared. In activity-based measures, process-oriented and financial standards. Strategic-based measures, standards for all four perspectives. So, the four perspectives in the balance scorecard. Then, activity-based, value-added standards, strategic-based, used to communicate strategy. In activity-based, dynamic standards, strategic-based, used to help align objectives, and activity-based with optimal standards in strategic-based, linked to strategy and objectives and balance measures. Now, the balance measures in a firm, measures selected should be balanced between lag and lead measures, objective and subjective measures, financial and non-financial measures, and external and internal measures. Now we are talking about the balance measures. Now, performance evaluation compared with activity-based and strategic-based. In activity-based, time reductions, quality improvements, cost reductions, and trend measurements. Whereas these four are also applicable to strategic-based. Those strategic-based, we have to add expanded set of metrics and stretch targets for all four perspectives. Now, stretch targets. Okay, stretch targets. actually found in strategic-based performance evaluation. In stretch targets set at levels that, if achieved, will transform the organization within a period of 3 to 5 years. Features that make stretch targets feasible, and measures are linked by causal relationships. Targets are not set in isolation because of linkages. Now, rewards compared. Activity-based rewards, and we have the strategic-based rewards. Now, take note that we all have the same in activity-based and strategic-based. Both have performance evaluated on two or more dimensions. However, in strategic-based, we have on four or more dimensions. So that makes the difference. Whereas the rest, group rewards, salary increases, promotions, and bonuses, profit sharing, and gain sharing are the same. Now, the balance scorecard permits an organization to create a strategic focus, involves translating the organization's strategy into operational objectives and performance measures for the following perspectives: financial perspective, customer, internal business process, and learning and growth, or infrastructure perspectives. Now, if you have listened to the lectures last Tuesday, we have already mentioned about the four perspectives, and examples were already involved in exercises that I have already discussed. You have the YouTube. So, strategy translation process. Now, first, we begin with the vision and strategy, and following here. We have the financial, customer, process, and infrastructure. Now we have the perspectives. Then we have following are the objectives, the measures, the targets, and the initiatives. Okay, so for the strategy translation process, in financial perspective, establishes the long and short term financial performance objectives expected from the organization's strategy, describes economic consequences of actions taken in the other three perspectives, strategic themes, revenue growth, cost reduction, and asset utilization, constrained by the need for managers to manage risk. Okay. Class, can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
Okay. It's okay? No problem? How about my voice? Is it continuous and loud? Still okay? Hello?
Yes,
Still
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Now we have the summary of objectives and measures. Financial perspective. We have the objectives and measures. So we have the revenue growth for the financial perspective. So we have now you have to be familiar with this because each of this phrase is very important. You will be given problems and exercises that will mention each one of this. In the revenue growth and then the measures, increase the number of new products. Measure is percentage of revenue from new products. Create new applications. So the measure is percentage of revenue from new applications. Develop new customers and markets. Percentage of revenues from new sources, and adopt a new pricing strategy, product and customer profitability. Now, for the cost reduction, Of course, if you reduce cost, you will increase revenue. Reduce unit product cost. The measure is unit product cost. Reduce unit customer cost. Unit customer cost is the measure. Reduce distribution channel cost. Cost per distribution channel. And finally, asset utilization. Improve asset utilization. The measures are return on investment and economic value added. Now, for the customer perspective, that's number two, defines the customer and market segments in which the business unit will compete. Number two, describes the way that value is created for customers. Then, core objectives and measures are developed once the customers and segments are defined. Customer perspective requires measures that drive the creation of customer value and the core outcomes. Customer value, the difference between realization and sacrifice. Realization, what the customer receives, and sacrifice, what is given up. Now, for the post-purchase cost, cost incurred by the customer after the purchase. Now, the summary of objectives and measures. So, we have now the customer perspective. Now, make sure you can now recall each of these objectives and measures. Now, for the objectives, core, increase market share. The measure is market share, percentage of market. Increase customer retention, and you have now the measure for as percentage growth existing customers, percentage of repeating customers. Then increase customer acquisition, number of new customers. Increase customer satisfaction, ratings from customer surveys. Increase customer profitability, measure is customer profitability. And we have the performance value. The objective is to decrease price. The measure is price. Decrease cost, purchase cost. The measure is post purchase cost. Improve product functionality, ratings from customer surveys. Improve product quality, percentage of returns. Increase delivery reliability, on-time delivery percentage, aging schedule, and ratings from customer surveys. Now, you try to be very familiar with these terms that are given under the objectives and under the measures. Now, we have the third perspective. We have internal business process. Describes the internal process needed to provide value for customers and owners. Process value chain is defined to provide the required framework. It's made up of innovation, operations, and post-sales service process. Now, these are indications of the process value chain. Now, for the summary of objectives and measures for process perspective. Now, again, you have to be very, very familiar with these objectives and measures. For innovation, increase the number of new products. The measure is number of new products, total products, research and development expenses. Yeah, the objective is to increase proprietary products, and the measure is percentage revenue from proprietary products, number of patents pending. Decrease product development cycle time, time to market from start to finish. Then for operations, Increase process quality. Measures are quality cost, output yields, percentage of effective units. Then increase process efficiency. Now the measures are a uh, cost trends, output inputs. And we have now decreased process time. We have the cycle time and velocity and the MCE. Now, for post-sales service, increase service quality. The measure is first pass yields and increase service efficiency. The measure is cost trends and output and inputs. Decrease service time. The measures are cycle time. Now we have the operational measures of responsiveness, cycle time, and velocity. So we have now these terms are very important. Cycle time for manufacturing is the time required to produce a product. That's time divided by units produced. So now we have the formula. Cycle time is equal to time divided by units produced, and velocity is the number of units of output that can be produced in a given period of time. So we have now the units produced divided by time. So it's the reverse of cycle time. Cycle time is time divided by units. Velocity is units divided by time. Now, using incentives, operational managers can improve delivery performance by reducing manufacturing cycle time and increasing velocity. So, these are now the means by which operational managers can improve delivery performance, reducing manufacturing cycle time and increasing velocity. Now, calculating cycle time and velocity, we have an example. Assume that the company has the following data for one of its manufacturing cells. Theoretical velocity, 40 units per hour. Productive minutes available per year, 1.2 million. Annual conversion cost, $4.8 million. Actual velocity, 30 units per hour. Calculate the actual conversion cost per unit using actual cycle time and the standard cost per minute. So we are going to determine the actual conversion cost per unit using the actual cycle time and the standard cost per minute. So we have now the calculate the ideal conversion cost per unit using theoretical cycle time and the standard cost per minute. What incentive exists for managers when cycle time costing is used? So the actual cycle time is 60 minutes divided by 30 units. So we now have 60 minutes, okay, 60 minutes divided by 30 units per hour. So again, we have to consider the requirement of the problem is actual conversion cost per unit using actual cycle time and the standard cost per minute. So we have now the formula for cycle time. We have now the time divided by the units produced, and velocity is units produced divided by time. And we have now the productive minutes available per year is 1.2 million. 1.2 million, while the actual theoretical velocity is 40 units per hour and the actual velocity is 30 units per hour. So we now get the difference for the actual cycle time. We are now dividing 60 minutes divided by 30 units. So we have 2 minutes per unit. 2 minutes per unit. The standard cost per minute is given dividing 4.8 million, that's the actual conversion cost. And we divide that by the productive minutes available per year, that's 1.2 million. So that gives $4 per minute. The conversion cost per unit is equal to $4 per minute. We multiply by 2 minutes per unit. So $4 per unit divided by, or we have now $4 per minute multiplied by 2 minutes per unit. This time we are using the actual cycle time. Second requirement is calculate the ideal conversion cost per unit using theoretical cycle time and the standard cost per minute. So we now divide 60 minutes divided by 40 units. Now take note that 40 units is the theoretical velocity. Okay? So we have now the theoretical velocity, whereas in requirement number 1, we use the actual velocity. There, we use 30. In the second requirement, we use 40. That's the theoretical units. So we have now 60 minutes divided by 40 units. So we have now 1.5 minutes per unit. So the conversion cost per unit is, we have $4. Still, we have $4. The same standard cost per minute. So $4 multiplied by 1.5 minutes per unit, the theoretical cycle time. So the incentive is to reduce cycle time because it reduces the cost per unit. If you are using the actual cycle time, the conversion cost per unit is $8. But take note that you are using the cycle time of 2 minutes per unit. In the case of the theoretical cycle time, you are using $6 per unit because per minute you have only, per unit you have only 1.5 minutes. So take note of the formula. Now, operational measures of responsiveness, manufacturing cycle efficiency, or the MCE. Manufacturing cycle efficiency is taken by dividing the processing time by the sum of the processing time plus move time plus inspection time plus waiting time plus other non-value added time. So we have now the MCE. Processing time is efficient or ideal time it takes to convert materials into a finished good. Other activities and their times are viewed as wasteful. The goal is to reduce time of other activities to zero. Now we are talking about non-value added time, which includes move time, inspection time, waiting time. We are now talking about non-value added activities. We have the activities that do not increase the value of the product. The only value added activity is the processing time. So if you talk about waiting, about storing, your vinegar, you prepare the vinegar, you have to manufacture it, convert it to bottled vinegar. Now you have to involve a storing time, no? So that will make the vinegar more sour. Now that storing time is considered to be a non-value added activity. If you talk about production of rice, and you have to dry the palay before you have this palay milled and convert it to rice. Now you have the drying, curing activities. Now both of this, no, supposed to be, no, most often, most activities are considered to be non-value added activity. So possibly you talk about drying, that's still part of processing. But when you talk of storing the palay, storing is a non-value added activity. So just remember that the only value added activity is processing. So when you process the products, that is value added. However, all the rest of the activities are non-value added, so that the purpose or the goal here is to reduce time of other activities to zero. Calculate manufacturing cycle efficiency or MCE. Example, companies provided the following information for one of its products for each hour of production. Actual velocity 100 units per hour, move time 20 minutes, inspection 15 minutes, rework time 10 minutes. Calculate MCE and comment on its significance. So we have now the theoretical cycle time. What is the theoretical cycle time? When we are now asked to determine the manufacturing cycle efficiency. And we have the formula here dividing the processing time by the sum of the processing time and the non-value added activities. So in this problem, we have the actual velocity of only 100 units per hour, and we have this times including the move, inspection, and rework time for a total of 45 minutes. So we now calculate the MCE using actual and theoretical cycle time. So the process time is 60 minutes minus 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and 10 minutes. So we have this total of 45 minutes deducted from 60. In other words, the process time is only 15 minutes. So we now divide the process time by the total of the process time and the non-value added activities. So the manufacturing cycle efficiency is equal to 0.25. It indicates that 75% of the manufacturing cycle is attributable to waste or non-value added activities. So in other words, the lower your MCE, it indicates that there are more waste than the produced time or the production time. So we have now the calculation of the MCE using theoretical cycle time, which is 15 minutes divided by 100 units. So we now have 0.15 minute per unit. So divide the actual cycle time is 60 minutes divided by 100 units, that gives 0.6, includes theoretical cycle time plus the waste. So the MCE using the theoretical cycle time is 0.15 divided by the actual cycle time of 0.25. Okay, the actual cycle time, I mean, of 0.60, that will give you the MCE as computed here. The MCE is 0.25. So it means that the MCE, instead of dividing the process time by the sum of the process time and the waste time, you still can determine the MCE by dividing the theoretical cycle time by the actual cycle time. Okay, so but anyway, we will take up these problems in relation to our given problems in the book. Now, the learning and growth perspective. Now, take note, that's the fourth perspective. In other words, the first, okay, we have already discussed the first the second, and the third. No? So we have the fourth is learning and growth perspective. Defines the capabilities that an organization needs to create long-term growth and improvement. Enabling factors, we have employee capabilities, information system capabilities, and employee attitudes. Now, for the table, summary of objectives and measures for learning and growth, we have now the objectives and the measures. Increase employee capabilities. So the measures are employee satisfaction ratings, turnover percentages, productivity, that would mean revenue divided by employee, hours of training, strategic job coverage ratio, the percentage of critical job requirements filled. Second objective is to increase motivation and alignment, suggestions per employee and implemented per employee. And another objective is to increase information systems capabilities. The measures are percentage of process with real-time feedback capabilities, percentage of customer-facing employees with online access to customer and product information. Then linking measures to strategy. Performance measures are derived from a company's vision, strategy, and objectives. Should be chosen so that they are balanced between outcome and lead measures. All scorecard measures should be linked by cause and effect relationships. Testable strategy and strategic feedback, set of link objectives aimed at an overall goal. Testability is achieved by restating the strategy into a set of cause and effect hypotheses and are expressed by sequence of if-then statements. Now, that is your hypothesis. Then we have the testable strategy and feedback. Strategic feedback allows managers to test the reasonableness of the strategy. Double loop feedback occurs whenever managers receive information about effectiveness of the strategy implementation, validity of the assumptions underlying the strategy, and single loop feedback emphasizes only the effectiveness of implementation, and the actual results deviating from planned results are a signal to take corrective action. Then we have the strategy map tool that graphically illustrates the cause and effect relationships, connects the balanced scorecard strategy with an organization's operating activities, provides a concise and pictorial representation of the firm's strategy, and linkages are portrayed for each of the firm's objectives. Show how the objectives are linked for each of the perspectives. Now we have the strategy map, an example. Consider the following value growth strategy expressed as a consequence of if-then statements. If employee skills are upgraded and if the manufacturing process is redesigned, then manufacturing cycle time will be decreased. If cycle time decreases, then delivery reliability will improve and process cost will decrease. If delivery reliability improves, then customer retention will increase. Now, strategy map. If customer retention increases, then market share will increase. If market share increases, sales will increase. If sales increase and costs decrease, then profits will increase. And if profits increase, then shareholder value will increase. That's your strategy map. Okay? So we have now the strategy map for financial. Increase shareholder value. That's the overall effect in your previous slide. Decrease process cost, increase profits, increase revenues. Customer, improve delivery reliability, increase customer retention, and increase market share. Internal process, improve cycle time. Now we have the importance of our formula and redesign process. For learning and growth, improve employee skills for learning and growth. Now, for strategic alignment, for the balanced scorecard to be successful, the entire organization must be committed to its achievement. Employees must be fully informed of the strategy and share ownership for the objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives. Incentives should be structured and resources must be allocated to support the strategy. Okay, so that ends our lecture, and our time is almost 10 o'clock. Now I will give you problems for assignment in chapter 9. Will you follow with chapter 9 this time? I'm talking of chapter 9 of the second book. That's already by Hansen and Mowen. Okay? So you now begin with the exercises on page 476. Beginning with page 476, we have exercise 9-1, that cycle time and velocity. Exercise 9-2, MCE. 9-3, strategy map. Then 9-4, we have activity-based responsibility accounting versus strategic-based. Then we have 9-7, balance scorecard perspectives. Okay, 9-7. Then we have again 9-9 for the cycle time and velocity. Then 9-11 for the balance scorecard. 9-12 for the testable strategy map. And we have 9-13 for the balance scorecard. Then we have the problems. Okay, take up problem 9-20 is activity-based responsibility. Then we have 9-21. 9-21 and 9-22. Okay, in the last 9-23. Now, these are the exercises and problems that I am now assigning. So, try to answer this. Actually, we will be including chapter 9 or the balance scorecard and all this